My name is Lucy. Standing in the mall's security office, I'm still shaken, my hands trembling as I hold a bottle of water. Just moments ago, I witnessed a man being handcuffed, a man who had been preying on innocent children. The sight of him being led away in cuffs brought a wave of relief, but the weight of what just happened still presses heavily on my chest. Let me take you back to earlier that day. I was at the mall to buy a birthday gift for my little cousin, Lily. I was in high spirits, imagining the joy on her face when she opened the present. The mall was bustling with families, teenagers, and weekend shoppers. Everything seemed normal, calm, and familiar. As I passed by the toy store, I pulled out my phone to text my dad about dinner plans. That's when I felt a small hand grab mine. I looked down, expecting to see a lost child. Instead, I saw a boy named Max, his eyes wide with fear, his face pale, and his breathing rapid. Before I could even ask his name, he whispered, "Pretend you're my mom. Please help me." His voice was shaky, like he was holding back tears. I knelt down and asked, "Are you hurt? Where are your parents?" He stepped closer and whispered again, "He's following children. Please don't let him take me." My heart skipped a beat. I slowly turned my head and scanned the area. About 20 feet away, I saw a tall man in his late 40s. He was pretending to scroll on his phone, but his eyes were fixed on Max. His stare was cold and calculating, like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. I felt a surge of protectiveness. I tightened my grip on Max's hand and said, "You're safe with me. I'm not letting go." At that moment, I felt a weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. Max's small hand trembled in mine, and I knew whatever he was running from was real and immediate. I asked Max his name again to calm him down. He whispered, "It's Max," and swallowed hard. I asked where his mom was, and he said they got separated when walking from the parking lot. He noticed the man staring at his little sister, so he moved closer to his mom. When he lost sight of her, the man started moving towards him, and that's when he panicked and ran. As we talked, I kept an eye on the man. He was pretending to look at a kiosk selling phone cases, but he angled himself just right to keep us in view. I shifted my position so my back was to him, pretending to talk casually to Max while watching him through the reflection on the store window. The man started moving towards us, and I knew I had to act fast. I told Max, "Stay with me. We're going to look for your mom together." My voice sounded steady, but inside, I was terrified. I reached into my purse, pretending to check my messages, but I pulled out my camera and discreetly started recording the man. When I looked up again, he was only about 10 steps away. There was something unsettling about the way he watched Max. I quickly moved towards the nearest store entrance, pushing aside a display rack to make space for us. The man slowed down as we entered the store but stayed near the doorway, pretending to read a poster. Max clung to my arm so tightly that it hurt. I whispered, "I'm not leaving you. I promise." I guided him deeper into the store, using the crowdedness to our advantage. I asked Max if the man had said anything to him. He nodded and said the man asked if he was alone and told him he had something to show him outside the mall. Hearing that made me angry. I knew this man was a threat. I knew we couldn't stay hidden for long. The man would start searching inside the stores when he realized we were out of sight. I peeked towards the front and saw him walking past the entrance, scanning the store slowly. I knew my next steps had to be fast and smart. I pulled Max behind a rack of jackets and knelt down to his level. I looked him in the eyes and said, "We're finding help right now. You did the right thing running to me. You're not alone anymore." His eyes filled with tears, but he nodded bravely. We stepped back out into the mall walkway. I knew hiding was no longer an option. The man was still close, and every second we waited gave him a chance to get closer. I scanned the crowds, looking for the safest direction. I told Max, "We're going to find help. Stay right beside me." As we walked, I pulled out my phone and found the mall's customer service number. My hands were shaking as I pressed call. When someone answered, I lowered my voice and said, "I have a child with me who is being followed. We need security right now." The operator asked for our location, and I told her we were in the main atrium. She said officers were on their way and told me not to leave the crowded area. I turned to look for the man. For a moment, I didn't see him. I thought maybe he had given up, but then I saw him on the second level, near the railing, watching us. He leaned over the edge, studying our path with a cold, focused expression. Max's grip tightened as he followed my gaze. The man started walking towards the escalator, clearly intent on coming down to our level. I told Max, "We're moving towards the family lounge. Security is meeting us there." We quickened our steps, passing a group of teenagers near the smoothie stand. That's when Max pointed towards the arcade entrance across the hall. He said he talked to a girl there earlier. I looked and saw several kids running in and out of the arcade with no adults around. I realized Max wasn't the only child the man had been watching. We turned towards the hallway leading to the family lounge. I checked behind us and saw the man weaving through the shoppers, moving faster but trying not to look suspicious. A woman with a stroller crossed in front of him, giving us a chance to create more distance. When I saw the family lounge sign ahead, I felt a wave of relief, but then I realized we had to walk through a narrow hallway to reach it. Narrow spaces meant more risk. I gripped my phone and speed-dialed my brother, Jake, a police officer. When he answered, I quickly told him what was happening. He told me to stay visible, walk with confidence, and not let the man cut us off. With his voice in my ear, I moved faster. As we turned into the hallway, 2 mall security officers appeared at the end, heading straight towards us. The sight of them brought a sense of safety. Max let out a shaky breath, and I felt some of the tension in his shoulders ease. But I still checked behind us. The man had just stepped into the hallway entrance. His expression tightened when he saw the security officers. He slowed down but stayed there, watching us. I knew there was no turning back. I was the barrier between this dangerous man and a frightened child. The officers noticed my urgency. One of them called out, "Ma'am, is this the child you reported?" I nodded and pointed behind me. "He's following us," I said. "He's right there." The officers immediately picked up their pace. Max clung to me so tightly that his nails dug into my skin. I pulled him in front of me and said, "Stay with the officers. Don't look back." The man hesitated at the entrance of the hallway, calculating his next move. Then he stepped forward with a quiet confidence that terrified me. The officers called out for him to stop, but he ignored them. One officer repeated the command louder and moved towards him. That's when the man tried to turn away. The officers reacted instantly, running towards him and grabbing him before he could escape. The man tensed but tried to act confused, saying he was lost. But his false calm chilled me. Max pressed himself against the younger officer, burying his face in her side. The officer comforted him while keeping an eye on the situation. The man tried to pull his arm free, saying he hadn't done anything wrong. But when he realized the officers weren't buying his excuses, his tone sharpened. He shifted again, and the officers tightened their hold. One of them told him, "We have received multiple reports about your behavior today. You need to step to the side and answer our questions." Instead of complying, he tried to sprint. The hallway filled with the sound of a struggle as the officers forced him against the wall. He dropped a black backpack, and it hit the floor with a heavy thud. I knew whatever was inside was not good. A crowd gathered at the end of the hallway. Parents pulled their children closer, and teenagers filmed from a distance. The officers finally managed to handcuff the man. One officer stepped back and opened the backpack. Inside, there were small toys, stickers, and trinkets, things to gain a child's trust. Beneath them were folded papers. One officer unfolded a paper and froze, then handed it to the other officer. I stepped closer and saw a list of children's names, each with a description beside it: age, hair color, clothing. At the bottom was a line that made my knees weak: targets for Saturday. Today was Saturday. The officers shared a look of alarm. One of them asked me if Max had mentioned anyone else. I nodded and said Max had seen the man watching children near the arcade and the fountain. The officer immediately radioed for backup, telling security to sweep those areas. Within minutes, more officers and mall staff spread out across the building. I stayed with Max and the officer while she gathered more information from him. Max pointed towards the arcade and said he was waiting near the entrance watching kids go in. The officers confirmed that several children had been identified as potential targets based on the notes in the backpack. Some were already being reunited with their parents, and others were being located by staff. As the officers walked the man out of the hallway in handcuffs, he turned and looked at us with an empty, calculating stare. Knowing he was finally caught made my fear fade into relief, but that look stayed with me. When the mall security supervisor approached and said, "Your call just saved a lot of kids today," I felt a heavy weight lift off my chest. I held Max's hand and whispered, "You're safe now." And at that moment, I truly believed it. A few minutes later, Max's mother arrived. She ran towards him so fast that she almost fell. She dropped to her knees, wrapped her arms around him, and cried. I stepped back to give them space, but Max kept one hand on my wrist. His mother looked up at me with gratitude and shock. She said, "I don't know what would have happened if you weren't here." I could barely respond because I knew exactly what she meant. Mall security asked us to go to their office to give statements. The room was small and bright, with monitors showing every corner of the mall. An officer handed me a bottle of water, and I realized my hands were still shaking. Max's mother explained how they got separated when she bent down to tie his sister's shoe. Her voice broke, and I could hear the guilt in her words. I told her Max did the right thing by finding someone he thought could keep him safe. That seemed to calm her a little. When the lead officer came in with their findings, the room went quiet. He explained that the man had been watching children for over an hour, circling the mall. He had approached at least 2 children earlier, but their parents had arrived in time. The papers in his backpack contained notes about 12 kids, including where he spotted them and what they were wearing. He also had old mall maps marked with circles around family areas, play zones, and exits. Hearing all of that made my stomach drop. The officer said, "If you hadn't stepped in when you did, he might have gotten away with one of them." I looked at Max and then at the monitors showing families in the mall, unaware of how close they had come to losing their children. After giving our statements, Max reached for my hand and whispered, "Thank you for helping me." His voice was soft but steady. Hearing those words made every moment of fear worth it. His mother hugged me and wouldn't let go for several seconds. She insisted on getting my number to thank me properly later. When security escorted them out, I sat alone for a moment, letting the adrenaline drain out of me. My legs felt weak, and my chest felt heavy. But beneath it all, I had a deep sense of clarity. I called my brother, Jake. He answered on the first ring. When I told him everything was okay, he let out a long breath. He said, "I'm proud of you, Lucy. You trusted your instincts and saved those kids' lives." That night, when I got home, I told my dad everything. He sat beside me and said, "You were meant to be there today. You made the right choice." I've learned that danger doesn't always come with a warning. Sometimes it walks in plain sight, blending into the crowd. And sometimes, the smallest decision can change the course of many lives. I'll always carry the knowledge that one small act kept 12 children safe. And I'll never look at a crowd the same way again. If you made it to the end of this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from so I can greet you personally.